this is Kyle Crawford from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Crimer Beer House for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. The beer house was started in 1982 by the Crimer family. Since that time, they have become a Cincinnati favorite. If you're looking for an incredible meal and an incredible setting, you have to try Crimer's Beer House down on Route 128 in Cleves, Ohio.
Welcome to Strong Dads. Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson and the one and only.
Man, what another intro here. Kyle Crawford.
Kyle Crawford. Kyle, how you doing, man?
I'm great.
Long time no see.
I know, it's been a while. Huh?
How'd your week go?
It was good. I was off all last week, so
I'm going to go back and listen to all of our shows and hear the number of times that you said I was off all last week.
The show with Rocky, our last show, that was my week off. So then it takes me a couple of days to recover, and I got my golf trip this week, so I'll be off for a couple of days too. So it's tough being a fireman.
Yeah. Well, speaking of fireman world, how's that going? I mean, this COVID thing seems to be kind of rearing its head again.
Yeah.
I know they're starting to shut places down. So what are you guys seeing? Without making this a COVID show.
Okay, yeah, right? we don't want to do that. No, things are fine. There's a lot of restrictions as far as when we're out making runs out in the public. You gotta wear a mask. Odds and ends, stuff like that. So, but I mean, as far as our own, we have over 300 employees on our roster, and to date we don't have anybody who has it. So that's a good thing. That's positive. Yeah. We have quite a few people who have been quarantined, after being exposed to a patient. But ever since we got all the proper PPE, all of our proper equipment, everything's pretty good though. So we're pretty well protected. We all have N95. We got face mask and eye protection stuff, and we always wear gloves. That hasn't changed. So
yeah. So if you guys get exposed that you know of, you have, what is it, a 14-day quarantine?
14 day, yeah, and
does that mean you can't go to work or anything?
Yeah, so you're out of work, and it's a little different because a lot of the stuff that's come down from the CDC and the health department, that 14-day is mandated, and the nice thing is every major city in the state of Ohio, and I'm sure it's not just the cities, but give you 80 hours on the city's time, so not on your personal time.
Okay.
So that we work 24 hours, so we're talking like 3.5 days of our own personal shifts are covered by the city, which is nice because it doesn't go against our personal time. It's basically considered a hazard of the job.
Yeah.
So that is definitely nice.
Yeah. Well, and kind of bring this up because the whole our kids are getting all these crazy messages about school starting back up, and what we're supposed to do, and some schools letting things roll and getting programs started, and then all of a sudden they're already starting to back off of that. Like, well, maybe this is not a good idea, and it's just crazy. It's confusing. And it really, actually, without it being a COVID show, it kind of leads into our topic today. The whole idea of how are we preparing our kids?
Yeah.
How are we preparing our kids to live in a world, like, we might think it's crazy today, but we have no clue what it's going to be like a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so, today our show is going to be really about just, we're in Rocky's book.
Yeah.
Okay, we talked about this in Rocky's book. One of his chapters is, and I don't want to misquote it, but something about are your kids strong? Are you making your kids strong or safe?
Yeah.
And that whole idea of how are we preparing our kids?
Yeah.
Are they, because, they all have to be able to take on the challenges of the day. So as a dad, how do I go about preparing my kid to be able to do life?
Yeah, and this is we had Rocky's show, Rocky Boyman. If you guys haven't listened to that, definitely go back from last week and give that a listen. This kind of stemmed from that idea. After he said that, we both were like, it kind of was a really kind of a I don't know if you call it a powerful statement, but again, it's one of his chapters he has in his book, and we thought it'd just be kind of cool just to kind of dive into that. And exactly, the beginning of the show already talking about the COVID, the idea that crazy things are going to happen.
Yeah,
and it's just an idea that, are we preparing our kids to be safe and kind of almost passive, or are we actually preparing them to be strong and be able to take on those challenges that are going to happen in our life? So I think it'll be a good show. We'll get into it, and it'll be good. But before we do that, we definitely want to thank our sponsor so much. Again, thanks so much for Crimer's Beer House for coming alongside of Strong Dads. The beer house was started in 1982 by the Crimer family, and since that time, they have definitely become a Cincinnati favorite. So if you were looking for an incredible meal in an incredible setting, go down on Route 128 and check out Kramer's Beer House.
All right. So I also want to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency, located in Bright, Indiana, for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. Established in 1981, the Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses located in Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky. So for all your insurance needs, contact Mansfield Insurance Agency.
Very good. Very good.
All right. So, yeah, let's just talk. Let me... I shared this story once before, but I think this is a kind of a funny story about, as parents, what our responsibility is to prepare our kids for what might come their way.
Yeah.
It's never going to be perfect, right? Because
Right.
we don't know everything that's going to come their way.
Right.
But when I was a school counselor, and I've shared this story on the show before just because, man, it just always, it reminds me of what we're putting our kids into.
Yep.
And we have to be thinking and be responsible with that as parents. A little boy wore to school one day a shirt that said, "Tough guys wear pink." Okay?
Yeah.
And so he's probably second grade or so.
Sure.
And he's all proud of this shirt when he comes in. I see him at breakfast that morning. I'm like, "Whoa, man, that is a bright shirt." And
Bold
he turns
statement.
around. Yeah. And I'm like, "Whoa, tough guys wear pink. Cool," you know? And the day goes on, and finally it's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And the secretary calls me, "Mr. Hutchinson, so-and-so needs to come in and see you. Are you available?" "Yeah, sure. What's going on?" So he comes in, and he's just bawling.
Yeah.
He's just bawling. And I'm like, "What's going on, bud?" And he's like, "Everybody keeps making fun of me. All my friends are making fun of me because of my shirt, you know." And I mean, I was like, I didn't laugh at him because that would not be appropriate, but I was like, wow. I said, "Well, why did you wear that shirt?" He said, "Well, my mom got it for me and she thought it was cute. My sisters thought it was cute or thought it was fun," I think is the word. And it just struck a chord with me. And the basic thing is, you know, that might be a fine shirt to wear, but you better be prepared for what you might get when you wear that. Yeah. And so is your child equipped? Okay, and whether that was right or wrong that he cried, I don't that's not the debate. The debate is I, as the parent, put him in that predicament.
Yeah.
I put him in that predicament, and because I thought this shirt was fun or cute or whatever. And he did not have the tools to handle what happened.
Yeah. And you know, that's a pretty funny story, but you know, at my job as a fireman, you know, I've been very fortunate. I work for a city, and majority of cities send you through a 6-month academy, and it's that exact idea. Again, not knocking on suburb departments, but traditionally they do not have an academy. Basically, if you have the certification, you can get hired on. And to me, the benefit of working for a city is I get sent through a 6-month academy. And now, with that being said, I had all my certifications coming into that, but I still had to go through, I had to learn the quote-unquote Dayton way of doing things, how we do stuff, how we fight fire. And in those trainings, you know, it's a 6-month long academy. And in that 6 months, they teach you, you know, again, they're not going to teach you everything you're going to ever encounter,
right?
But they're preparing you, giving you those tools you have. And one of the things that really sticks out to me is called a flashover simulator. And a flashover is when everything in a room ignites at one point, and it's a deadly environment to be in. And we have a simulator. It's basically a big container, and they make the container flash over, and you're below it, so you actually you still feel the heat of it, but it's not deadly in that sense. And the reason I bring that up is because it prepares you to see what a flashover looks like, and the beginning stages of a flashover. Because again, it is a deadly environment to be in. You will not survive even with all of our gear. It's not a survivable environment, and it's cool because in this simulator you see before that happens, and it really prepares you for knowing those signs.
It's time to get out.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, it's not that idea that they're trying to make me. It is meant to be to make you safe, but it's preparing you to see that, so that when you do see it, you know the steps to take to get out.
Right.
And I think that just goes to hopefully what this show is going to get out, that idea that we're not going to be able to teach our kids every single circumstance they're ever going to be put in, but it's just that idea that we should give them the tools to hopefully make them strong and not always be so passive and ready, to kind of just that idea, I was kind of joking before we did this show, that idea that, in a lot of ways, I think that the more safer mentality kind of a lot of times falls on the mom. And again, I might be generalizing, but I feel like that idea that as strong dads, we should be preparing our kids to be that strong, steadfast kind of, I can take on anything. Again, I might need resources, I might need help, but being prepared for those different circumstances that are going to come up.
Yeah. Part of our job there is to educate on how to be strong, right?
Yep.
How to be safe, so that we can get through it. So
Yep.
The whole COVID thing has really brought this up, and I by no means am I taking some sort of side, because I just feel like there's so many factors, so many variables that come into play. But one of the things that we see are extremes.
Yeah.
We see extremes. One extreme is basically barricade yourself down, don't go anywhere, limit everything, and you're basically in shutdown mode. And part of our challenge here to our strong dads is, well, are we scaring the crap out of our kids?
Yeah.
Okay, are we shutting our kids down? Are we as parents reacting in such a way that we feel like victims, like we feel like we don't have the tools, we don't have the resources? And so what are our kids learning from that? The other side is just haphazard, like not educating our kids, just doing whatever we want to do. Okay, so there's somewhere in the middle is where we build strength.
Yeah.
Where we build strength, where we educate, but yet we educate them to the point where we say, okay, this is, like you said, the flashover. This is what could happen.
Yep.
How are we preparing for it? And so as a dad, and moms can do this equally, but dads, when we see our kids running just into safe mode, just into shutdown and protective mode, we're actually limiting their ability to grow.
Sure. And it's not realistic. I mean, the world is going to throw crazy stuff at you, i.e. COVID. There's going to be things that are going to happen in our kids' life. And if we, kind of sit by and basically, we talk about this all the time. If it happens, it happens. And I'll make it up as I go. Just the idea that preparation starts now, that there's got to be a preparation. It's not going to be something, it's so hard to prepare your kids. Rocky made this point in his show, the idea that, it's very hard to start teaching a kid when they're 12 and 13 years old. And that same idea can happen, it applies to this, that idea that it's so hard to teach your kids how to defend and how to be that strong when something's going on, when they're being bullied at school, when the COVID happens, whenever they get fired from a job, whenever they don't get a job. It's so hard to kind of instill those things, those characteristics that we want our kids to have when it's actually happening. It's just the idea that we should start now, that we got to start instilling those behaviors now.
Yeah. All things come at a risk.
Yeah.
And being at zero risk is something that is probably in most cases not attainable.
Yeah.
We years ago in the school setting, the protocol for active shooter, so an active shooter in the building, the protocol was to get your kids hunkered down into their classroom, get into one corner of the classroom, shut the lights off, and barricade the door and be quiet. That was protocol. Okay, active shooter lockdown. They came to realize after things like Sandy Hook and stuff like that is how many people get killed.
Yeah.
That's how we lose a lot of life. That's how things go bad. So they actually completely changed the protocol into what we teach now. And when this first came out, I have to tell you, because I was on the forefront of helping teach this in our building.
Sure.
I was like, whoa, I don't know if our parents are going to go for this.
Yeah.
And the protocol changed. And the protocol was, if you get to the point where you have no options, you're backed into the room. Okay. If you can, you want to flee the building, right?
Sure.
But if you can't, for whatever reason, the active shooter is coming through, okay, you teach the kids how to fight.
Yeah.
You teach them how to defend themselves. Whether they're throwing desk or books or a pencil or I got 20 third graders climbing on the crazy man all at one time. So we teach them that side of it. Let's be strong Because strong will make us safe. It'll make us
Yeah.
successful versus let's cow down,
Yeah.
right? So this is so much of what we really have to have some thought about. Like, and dads, this is where you have to plan because, as you said before, I think the general thinking is, and this is the case in my house, my wife is more concerned with our kids being safe than I
Yeah.
am. I'm more about, well, let's get it done.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think that that's probably a little bit widespread. That
Yeah.
moms are a little bit more like, well, hang on, what could go wrong? And that's good. We need some of that.
Absolutely.
But we have to have the balance of the strength.
Yeah, and not necessarily a challenge, but also kind of an evaluation. If you as a strong dad are looking in the mirror and sometimes you find yourself not being prepared for situations and not being willing to jump into quote unquote unsafe situations, like maybe it's a time where you do a little bit of evaluation and because it's so hard to teach something that you're not practicing.
Yeah.
And if we're sitting there teaching our kids how to fend off a school shooter, and again, as terrible as that to sound, but if you yourself would not be willing to jump into something like that, how are we going to teach that to our kids? And it just goes to that idea that as strong dads, as believers, like we know that the world is going to throw crap out of us. And it's just that idea that we need to be ready for that. And again, every situation is kind of, it's going to be different. Just that idea that as a strong dad, are you yourself ready to be strong and not necessarily always fall back into that safe, throwing your hands up when times get hard. And we talk about this all the time. If you are a dad out there and you're contemplating leaving your kids because stuff's hard, are you playing it safe? Because the safe would be, sure. I mean, if there's a way out to get out of that, that might be the safe road for you. But is that what a strong dad would do? And obviously here at Strong Dads, we obviously would say absolutely not. Not throwing our hands up, not, just quitting.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk. Let's try to equip our dads with a few practices that will help them be more thoughtful in how they're interacting with their kids, how they're talking to them about everything from COVID to whether I'm going to get cut from the football team. Okay,
Yeah.
like let's talk about how we can equip our dads so they can think about what they're going to do. Okay, the first thing I want to think about is the idea, and we've talked about this before: fire drills.
Yep.
You did the flashover practice because it allowed you to stay calm, learn to recognize things. Okay.
Yeah.
In the school setting, we do fire drills.
Yeah.
So we call it out. We say, we could have a fire in our building.
Yeah.
Okay. And we have to do that. That's part of the education process. We have to call it out. We could have a fire in our building. If we had a fire in our building, what would we do?
Yeah.
Okay. And so any of these situations, play them out with your kids. Okay, what if a robber comes in our house?
Yep.
What are you going to do? And let your kid talk through that.
Yeah.
Okay. Scream and cry and yell for mommy. Well, that could be part of the mix, but what else are we going to do? Okay.
Right. Yeah, and I mean those fire drills. It's not just in a school setting. It's not something that you do once and expect your kid to completely pick up on. Doing those constant check-ins, like I know I got bullied a lot growing up in school, and it was one of those things like. I found a lot of strength in my parents because they were behind me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't necessarily something we ever really talked about, but when we were in those situations, like my parents were right there with me. And they walked me through exactly, the steps. Okay, if this happens again, and obviously my dad was one of those like, well, defend yourself. My mom's like, a little bit more passive role.
Jack him in the jaw.
Yeah.
What are you doing? Yeah.
But it's to me, the idea of being strong and not necessarily always being safe also when they are happening, that idea, like, because we never did quote unquote fire drills when it came to people bullying me, like my parents were there with me and they walked me through it, and I found so much strength in that. I didn't feel like I was out on a desert island by myself.
Yeah.
Like, just that idea that in those situations I have my parents' support.
Yeah. Great stuff there. So the next part would be education. All right.
Yeah.
So when we are talking about the fire drill, when we're talking about the bad scenario that our kids potentially could be exposed to, okay, I need to educate them on really what that looks like. We need to expand on it so that they realize maybe why this is happening, what they have control of, what they don't have control of, and then I need to educate them on their resources.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the desk before in the active fire or active shooter drill was something I laid under.
Yeah.
The desk now is something I pick up and throw.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I have to teach my kids what tools are at their fingertips, whether they're going to school and there's a bully.
Yeah.
Okay? Gosh, there's so many different things that we can do once we identify the potential problem.
Yeah.
You mentioned bullying. Okay?
Yeah.
Well, calling the school and telling the school to get rid of all the bullies. I mean, we'd love to see all the bullies go away.
Sure.
But we've never seen that happen.
Right.
Right? That's like saying, well, we want world peace. Well, yeah, everybody wants world peace.
Right.
Have we ever seen it?
Right.
Okay? So let's prepare for what could happen.
Right.
And then what tools are at our kids' fingertips for the particular thing they could run into.
Yep. And that education is so key. Again, just that academy that I have to go through, they teach us different hose streams, how they can attack a fire different. And again, it's important to have those tools and those resources that I know if I go into this type of fire, I probably want this hose stream. If I go into a different type of fire, I probably want it to look a little bit different. And that with that education comes equipping your kids and just that idea that, again, you're not going to be able to teach your kids every single situation they're ever going to come upon, but giving them multiple different outs, giving them multiple different ways to stand firm. Here we're never going to advocate 100% of the time doing one specific thing. Just the idea that we need to equip our kids with multiple different ways to attack different situations. And again, just in my world as a fireman, that's big for us because if we get pigeonholed into one way of doing something, we're going to fail.
Yeah.
We're going to fail. It's just that idea, that they have educated us, they've taught us, if you have this type of environment, this is how you're going to react to it. If you have this, and again, in those, we have protocols for how we do stuff, but in that, there is some leeway on different ways we can attack a fire.
Yeah. Another thing that we like to talk about is, and you're not really going to do this at a very, very young age, just because kiddos don't recognize it. But when a kid starts to get into their 9, 10, 11 years old, they actually start to recognize, and you can point out to them when their mood is dictating how they're thinking and what their actions are.
Yeah.
Okay, if they get upset, if they're crying, if they're in a bad mood, how that determines what they're going to think and then what action's going to come.
Yeah.
And so teaching your kids, like we talk about this in the fire drill. Okay, all right, I pull the fire alarm and everybody starts screaming and yelling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, whoa, teach your kids. You see that? When you go into that emotional thought, you lose your brain.
Yeah.
Like you just went through and you mentioned all these different sort of streamlines, water lines, hose lines that you can use. Well, if you are in a panic, you're just going to be grabbing something, okay? Versus, okay, no, I see this kind of fire, I can think.
Yeah.
I can think and stay on my feet and be cool. And so we need to equip our kids with, hey, listen, take a deep breath, calm down, keep your mind. And we need to do that in our own house, like this whole COVID thing, okay? I mean, are we emotionally responding based on the latest news that comes out, or are we going, okay, wait, I need to think, what do I need to do to keep me safe, but yet allow me to get out and live life?
And I've talked about this a lot with my oldest daughter, Ava. She's a very emotional girl. And Jenny even made mention of this, that I'm learning how to deal with my girl's emotional state. And, for example, we just did swim lessons, a month or so ago. And, things are hard. Learning how to swim is a difficult thing. And for Ava, when things are difficult, that's typically when she kind of falls into getting very emotional. And I've learned that to approach her, I tell her it's okay to cry, but you need to learn to compose yourself. And you need to learn to kind of take a step back, not if the instructor wants you to do whatever, if it's hard, that's okay. You can have emotions. They're not bad, but you need to learn to step back and compose yourself. And as you were talking about that, Merle, one of the things that kind of came to mind, I was in a fire, and the guy that I was with was on the hose line. And we were up in a Cape Cod, and it was dark. I mean, zero visibility, and we're in there. And again, knowing that this guy has had the exact same training I did, I'm confident when I go in with these guys. We couldn't find the fire, which is hard to believe. You think of a fire, you think it's very visible. But because of the dense black smoke, we couldn't see anything. And it started to get really hot. It was a Cape Cod. It had those knee walls on the side. It was very, very hot. And at that point, if he were just to throw his hands up and let the emotions get the best, I'm like, holy cow, this is hot.
I'm getting out of here.
I'm getting out of here right now. it would have ended well. We probably would have had a flashover. And just that idea that he had the mindset to basically, because we couldn't find the fire, but he knew we were all inside of basically an oven. He basically just opened up the hand line on the ceiling and just drenched us. And it worked out really well because we couldn't see the fire. And then finally the fire blew out the window, and then voila, there's the fire, and we knew how to attack that. But if he would have gotten emotional and not know how to deal with it, because again, we had that 6 months of training, so we were taught how to deal with a situation like this. We couldn't find the fire. He easily could have just put a streamline willy-nilly and not knowing where it was going, but just that idea that he knew we were inside there, we needed a little bit of relief. He opened up that hand line and basically got us soaking wet, but kept us cooled down enough that finally the fire, it showed its head, and then we were able to get in there and do what we were supposed to do. So
that's crazy. In the minute when water was drenching all over you, you're like, "You idiot! What are you doing?" And then
but he knew that was helping us, because like I said, we were inside of an oven. We had a guy jump over top of us because it was so hot. Like, his emotion got the best of him, and when you're sitting there, when you're getting cooked, it's easy to do that. When you're in a situation where it's crappy and stuff sucks, like, it's so easy to be the one that be like, all right, I'm done. But going back to those fire drills, knowing that we teach our kids those things so that when they do get in those situations, they can react in a positive way.
I think it's so important. Another part of this is, especially us as dads, when we are teaching our kids and we're having these talks, like I'm thinking the instructor that was teaching you, he teaches with confidence. Guys, here's what you do. Okay. Yep. If he said, well, I don't know, I don't know what we can really do here. Let's think. You'd be like, really?
Yeah.
The same thing here. We have to have our kids buy in.
Yeah.
They have to have buy-in to what they're going to do and confidence that it's going to produce fruit. It's going to work. And so if we are lackadaisical, if we are not committed in ourselves, if we don't have confidence in the plan forward, it's going to fall apart through them. So when we talk to our kids about whether, hey, you're going to go out for football? Okay, cool. I believe in you. You can do this. Here's what this looks like. Yeah, you're going to get your bell rang a few times. Yeah, you're going to have terrible practices. Yeah, you're going to have things like this. But you can do this.
Yeah.
Okay? And speaking confidence into your kid through your own confidence in them allows them to have buy-in, especially when it gets hot, right? Especially when it's scary. When it's like, I'm done, I'm sick of this. I remember Rocky was saying in our show with him, he had been cut from one team and he had 6 weeks where he was just like, I'm over this, man. I don't even know what's going on. I'm not on a team. And he was just out every day practicing out on a local high school football field. Yeah. And the idea was like, okay, I've got to stick with this. I've got to believe in my plan. And again, things happen.
Yeah, and right? just again with that with the story that Rocky was telling about when he did get cut, if his dad had not instilled the idea of sacrifice and perseverance, when he got cut from a team, would he have dug in deep and say, all right, this is what I got to do because I know that sacrifice has to happen in order to get where I want to go, and that perseverance and just what I was saying before, just that idea that we need to teach our kids before they're in those storms.
Yeah. So the final thing, and then we're going to wrap things up, is the final thing is perseverance. Teaching your kids that things do not come easy necessarily, and that you get knocked down. And every knockdown is an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity to be coachable. And the perseverance says, I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to give up. And so teaching your kid that getting knocked down is not a failure.
Yeah,
that's getting back up is a failure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And that is so important. All of our kids, we'd love to give them an easy road. We'd love them to have no problems, but that would be so misleading to them. Yeah. And so we need to get them out. We need to prepare them. We need to get them strong. And so the question is, would I rather my kid be strong or safe? My answer is, I want them to be both. Sure. I want them to be safe through their strength.
Yeah, through preparation.
Through their strength. Yeah. And so as a dad, that is part of our job to help our kids know how they get that strength.
Yeah. For sure. I think this is a really good conversation. I hope that I hope this brings up good conversations in your house. I would definitely say, a challenge moving after this show for you guys to talk to your kids about different situations, having those fire drills, preparing your kids, educating your kids. Again, we're never going to be able to tell our kids everything, every mishap, everything bad in this world that's going to happen to them. But again, just preparing them, teaching them what sacrifice looks like, teaching them what it means after you do fail. Again, just like you were saying, Merle, I think is a great point that the failure is not that you got cut from the team. The failure is that you gave up and you threw your hands up. So I would definitely just encourage all you guys out there, all you dads out there, to have those tough conversations, because they're not going to be easy conversations. To talk to your kids about what a school shooter looks like, that's a hard conversation to have. That's not going to be a fun conversation.
And we have to keep it age appropriate.
Absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And Jenny tells the girls all this time, I don't know what life is going to throw at you, but at the end of the day, know that mommy, daddy love you, and more important than that, God loves you. And there's a lot of strength that comes from that. Again, just what I was talking about when I was bullied, knowing that I had my parents behind me 100% was so powerful for a fifth grader at the time. I mean, to know that the world may be coming down on me. There's bullies pushing me down the steps, but knowing that I had two parents that loved me, and regardless of what situation, they were going to be behind me. And I think there's so much value for your kids in that, and there's so many teachable moments that can happen. We talk all the time about teaching our kids and building our kids, building the next generation. Like, what a great place to start by having some of these conversations.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So, at the end of the day, we're going to have things we can't figure out. We're going to have problems that show up. We're going to have tragedies. We're going to have bad stuff. We're going to have COVID, right? We're going to have these nasty things. And so, as a dad, you're not going to have the answers to a lot of these things. And that's where our faith in Christ comes together. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And so, this is the rock foundation that gives me the confidence to say, I'm going to do the best I can to equip you. But at the end of the day, I'm going to have to hand this over to God. At the end of the day, when you walk into a fire, no matter how much training you've had,
absolutely,
you got to have some faith that you're going to walk out of there. Yeah. Okay? So, great message. Again, I'd like my kids to be strong and safe, not just one or the other. So, excellent stuff. All right, let's wrap this up.
For sure. Definitely. Again, if you guys are out there, you guys need to talk to someone. I know Merle and Linda here at Rock Solid Families would love to talk to you guys. If you guys have questions, if there's any shows you would like us to do, we'd love you guys to reach out to us. You guys can call here at Rock Solid Families at 812-576-7625. Again, we'd love to talk to you guys. Merle, you still don't have me an email, but you can reach Merle at Hutch at rocksolidfamily.org. Again, thanks so much for coming alongside of us as Merle and I try and figure out this whole Strong Dads thing. We're approaching a year for our show here.
Yeah, we're going to have to do an anniversary show.
I know, pretty cool.
Good stuff.
Definitely, again, thanks so much, Kramer's Beer House and Mansfield Insurance Agency, for coming alongside of us, and go out there and be some strong dads.
Hey, this is Merle Hutchinson from Strong Dads. Strong Dads wants to thank Mansfield Insurance Agency in Bright, Indiana for sponsoring today's Strong Dads podcast. Established in 1981, the Mansfield Insurance Agency has been dedicated to the individuals and businesses in Bright, Indiana, serving clients throughout Indiana, Ohio, and Kentucky.